Welcome back to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. Now, I like to mix up our guests with a particular focus on people who are in roles right now that are doing those roles successfully. Now, many young people don't think about selling as a profession that leads places. My guest today shows that it absolutely still is, and I'm curious to hear about her mindset, her career path, and the advice that she might give not only to others contemplating a career in sales, but maybe even to her younger self as well. I'm joined today by Tamzin Trimboli. Tamzin is the National Sales Manager at a major polypipe manufacturer based in Adelaide, South Australia. And they service the rural, mining, civil, irrigation and viticulture sectors Australia-wide. Now, she's worked with the business for 15 years in a number of different roles, ranging from marketing, accounts, logistics and production, with a large focus on sales, which is obviously why she's here today. Now, Tamzin actually started with this business when she was 16 years old. Now, that's almost unheard of these days and has been on a significant growth journey, both personally and professionally, ever since. She's now a senior executive of the business and manages the sales and logistics functions, including the day-to-day operations, and she manages major projects as well. Welcome, Tamzin.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. As I said to you, earlier before we kicked off the podcast today, when I met you that day at Vistage, and I heard, that you'd been in the role in the company for so long, but you'd come through the ranks and you had a really broad range of roles to where you are now, which is one of the most senior leaders in the business. It was so impressive, and I just thought, gee, you're an example that sales is absolutely not a dirty word, and it's actually something, in terms of a profession that people can be proud of. So you started as a teenager, and 16 is quite a young teenager. Can you tell me what made you enter the workplace straight from high school instead of doing what a lot of people do, mindlessly I might say, and go to university?
So I started DM Plastics in October 2010. I was actually at the end of year 11. So I started in the business and entered into a school-based apprenticeship. So studying my Cert 3 in business. So at the start of year 12 is when that kicked off.
Yes.
I was working at DM Plastics 3 days a week, going to school 1 day a week and going to TAFE 1 day a week. So that was a lot to juggle, especially at a young age. And I think that's where I really learned self-discipline.
Yeah, I'll say. So that sounds like a fantastic pathway. What were some of the other people who were studying their Cert 3 in business doing, and how do you think you kind of differed from them?
Well, I wasn't just studying, I was also getting on-the-job experience,
right,
which is a huge advantage. You're not just hearing about it, reading about it, you're actually able to apply it at work to your skills, to your day-to-day, and I think that's what made a huge difference. I actually finished my apprenticeship 5 months early than anticipated, and I think that was mostly driven by the fact that I had the hands-on actual experience.
That's amazing. So what was the apprenticeship in? So did you have like a Cert 3 and an apprenticeship going at the same time?
It was a school-based apprenticeship, so
Yeah.
the way they structure it is you are doing your study while working in the workplace.
Yes.
So I was working at DM Plastics here while studying my Cert 3, and had the flexibility within the program and within school to be able to work, in a part-time basis 3 days a week, attend school 1 day a week and attend TAFE 1 day a week doing the actual study itself. So
here's the bit that really gets me. So if I take myself right back to year 10, And I remember we did work experience, and I worked down at BHP down on the Mornington Peninsula at Lysarts, and I wanted to do business, right? We didn't have Cert 3s and all of that sort of stuff, but I always knew I wanted to do something in business. And I was the most useless person in that office. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no kind of worldly capability at all. I was a good student, but that was about it. And so I'm super impressed. So let's explore now how you started your career in sales. Where did that begin?
So I started at DM Plastics in a very entry level role.
Yeah.
So I started off they basically handed me a CRM system and the wine titles directory. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the wine titles directory, but it includes every vineyard across the country. And the task I was assigned was to input every vineyard into the CRM. And obviously at this point in time, I'd never heard of a CRM. I didn't know what any of that meant. So I did some research around CRM systems and got an understanding of what it was, and that set me up all sorts of different paths. And as I was entering these vineyards into the system, I started to see that there was these categories for industries and type of customer, whether they're a distributor or a reseller or end user, and I just sort of started doing some research to understand what all of that meant. So it took me a few weeks, it's quite a directory, to enter all of these places in, and once I'd done that, I then started noticing some trends in there, some patterns in the CRM. So that very easily led me into my next role at DM Plastics, which was a marketing role. So I started doing some promotions. Now, this is back in the day when, if you're doing a promotion, it was actually sent out via fax. So black and white, little pictures in Publisher. I'd never done any marketing before either, but I am tech savvy, so I just sort of, made it look nice. And as a business, we didn't have anything in place, so it was a bit of a fresh starting point for both myself and the business.
Yeah.
So I actually designed all of our product catalogue, brochures, product information sheets, flyers, etc. Did a lot of marketing campaigning, and that sort of really started to open my eyes to that whole sales world and how the marketing dovetails into sales and vice versa. So that's where I started, as always, I always ask a lot of questions, trying to understand what I'm doing. I do a lot of my own research. And that's what led me into my next role after marketing, which was a sales support role. So tying that in with marketing to some degree, with promotions and stuff, but also doing some sales admin tasks as well, just processing sales orders, assisting with quotes, maintaining quote logs where everything was very manually entered as well, so a lot of heavy data entry. Yeah. From there I started picking up the phone and talking with customers, and found that I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Always loved being able to help people and a bit of a problem solver at heart, so that was absolutely just right up my alley. And because I'd spent so much time in getting the CRM and these sort of systems and processes in place, and a lot of product information, data sheets, it's just sort of, the two just went hand in hand, and it just sort of took off from there in what was then my sales journey.
So Tamzin, how you said you started doing data entry, doing that massive project of getting all of the vineyards into the CRM to start with, and then you moved into marketing. You were doing the faxes, designing that. You've always been a bit tech savvy, but you mentioned that you were quite hands-on with product catalogues. I have to ask, at what age?
This was only about not even a year after starting, so I would have been about 17, 18.
Yeah. So I have to tell you something. I don't know if I'm sure other people have told you this, but I am absolutely going to drive this point home here. You are not a usual young person. That is quite outstanding. It sounds to me that you have this ability to really just jump in and figure things out on the fly. And I would probably suggest that you enjoy the challenge. Would that be?
Absolutely. Yeah. Love a challenge. So I always tackle things head on, but I'll always do my research. So I'm making, I guess, an educated decision as best as I can, but I've always been a bit of a problem solver. I matured at a very young age, looking after family, my brother and sister, and I did a lot of my growing up early, so I was a mature, even though I was young, I was mature at that age as well.
There's no question about it. I mean, I can even hear that now, but I can hear you talking about your younger self, and it stands out. It really does. So, okay, because when I hear, all right, so then I moved into a sales support role, and then I picked up the phone, and I actually found, that, I loved a challenge. I love helping people. I love problem solving. It's picking up the phone for a lot of salespeople is something that they will do almost anything to avoid. And yet here you are, a young person, absolutely loving it. I mean, again, I find that extraordinary. At what stage do you think you realised that there was actually a career pathway for you through sales? And what role do you think you played in actively carving that out?
So it was when the business had a lot of growth, and the business identified that they needed another person within the sales team. I was already doing that role virtually, informally, maybe not to its full extent, and they put the opportunity forward to me to actually officially step into a sales support role. So the title at the time was internal sales liaison, and it just sort of escalated from there. So I was at that point in time, I was then working full time. I'd finished my apprenticeship as well, so the timing just sort of all come about. It just sort of fell into place. So I finished my apprenticeship. I was then working 5 days a week. I'd finished school, successfully passed Year 12 and had done all those things. And the business gave me the opportunity to then step into a full-time sales role. And I just absolutely embraced it. And the more experience I got, and which was all hands-on experience, I just thought this is exactly what I want to do. I absolutely loved it. And I then they actually then went and did a Certificate 4 in business sales. So not long after completing my Cert 3, within about 6 months I started my Cert 4 in business sales. So business, yes, but more sales focused, which I think then gave me the extra skill set that I needed to then take that next step and take that forward.
It's so exciting to me to listen to you. I absolutely love hearing about how deliberate every single step that you've taken has been, and you've always sought out further development for yourself, whether that be formal education, and I imagine, you probably, reached within the business as well for, internal mentors and support. Tell me, I mean, from your perspective, hearing all of the things that you're talking about now, and you look back at the business back then and how old you were, I mean, even though you were an amazing young woman, it sounds to me like the business was actually also really prepared to give you an opportunity to prove yourself. I know you were really, hungry for it, but they were also prepared to give you that opportunity, what level of support did they provide to you, knowing how green you were, but also wanting to support your eagerness and your appetite?
They supported me that much. They actually paid for all of my training and courses. They paid for the Cert 4. They have, since that, they've covered off probably about 6 other, courses and training and study. Look, I got to where I am based on hard work and merit, but I also got to where I am based on the opportunities that the company had given me and still continue to give me, know. So the opportunities has ultimately been, I believe, the driving force behind my success. I embraced every opportunity. I didn't shy away from anything either. I was always quick to put my hand up for new training courses or networking events, and the owner's wife, of the owner of the business, his wife, she is heavily involved in a lot of networking and, sort of seminars and conferences and things like that. So she would always get me to go along to these things. And I think, from attending all of those events, that really built up my confidence as well. And also, of course, my knowledge, and applying that with my experience, it just gelled really nicely.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect combination between somebody who was really hungry for and willing to take on those challenges and meet them head on, and a company that was really willing to support you and open up as many doors as they possibly could in every way that they could. Yeah.
They've been extremely supportive. I'm very grateful, because you can work hard, but if you're not getting the opportunities to take that next step and keep moving forward, sometimes you can feel a bit stuck. But I'm very fortunate to have started at a young age in a business who has done a lot to support me, and guide me, mentor me, give me advice. I'm definitely not the same person that I was 15 years ago when I started, but the business has also grown significantly in that time. So I feel it's been mutually beneficial in a lot of ways, and as the business has grown, I've grown both personally and professionally. So it's kind of like we've just both been on this journey of growth together, is how it feels.
There's no doubt about it. And I think that like business owners, salespeople too, I mean anyone, but particularly salespeople, your results grow to the degree that you grow. And it's the same with businesses. They kind of get stuck when the business owners stop growing themselves or stop stretching. So knowing the pathway that you've been on and now how senior you are in the business, looking back, what are the qualities that you think that you had and also that you would look for now in someone like you to go down a similar career path? What are some of those qualities that made you successful at selling at each of those levels?
Definitely being driven. So some people lack a bit of drive. I think you've definitely got to be driven in the right ways, and motivated.
Yes.
I also think self-discipline as well is another big, some people struggle to sort of set goals. I've always been, something I applied at a very young age was the SMART goal concept.
Yes.
So, setting goals that are in line with you and how you operate as an individual. Everyone's different. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you and vice versa. So you've got to tailor your approach to suit yourself, which I think then leads me into self-awareness as well, and knowing how you operate, So if you're driven enough and you are self-aware, you know what works for you, you know what doesn't, you know how to organise yourself, then the rest of it, without even realising, just kind of happens naturally.
Yes. Yeah. I think self-awareness is a really big key. And for you to have already identified that, I think that's extraordinary. What do you think was the difference between being good at sales support, then being in sales, and then making that shift to being, a national sales manager?
So I was in sales and then actually went into a production and logistics manager role in the business. So I was in sales for about 8 years all up, in different roles. I was also, before stepping into the production planner and logistics manager role, I was also in a customer service manager role. So managing our internal sales, our customer service centre, having complete oversight on that, which gave me that feel for leadership and responsibility. And then stepping into that production and logistics role, was responsible for managing revenue, setting and preparing our production schedule, and managing our logistics team as well. So with that sales knowledge and experience, that really helped in the production role to see a different side of the business. And it kind of come full circle as well in how what we do in sales, how that can impact production and dispatch, but also how what they're doing can impact sales. So it's about giving sales, and selling isn't just about us as a sales team. What we do, it's about the full company, and the company, everyone's got to have the same goals or working towards the same outcomes, because you can sell as much as you like, but if you're not getting it out on time or manufacturing it in time, then it undoes that hard work as well. So it's got to be a balance. The other aspect of it is working in those other areas of the business. I really got to understand the business's strengths and weaknesses, and the business's capabilities as well. So knowing that, as the saying goes, you don't bite off more than you can chew, or over promise and under deliver. I got to see a completely different side of the business and use my sales knowledge and experience to help drive the best outcomes there as well, and change some systems, change some processes, implement some new systems and processes, just on how we could do things better or do things differently.
So I'm going to ask you a question now, because a big part of my methodology is an organisation-wide approach to customer. And I talk about, creating a culture of customer. And that doesn't mean that people in production need to, all of a sudden become salespeople. But what I am suggesting is that everyone has a customer and also is a customer, whether that's a direct customer who pays us money in exchange for goods and services, or somebody internal that I'm delivering benefit to, or it might be a supplier, whatever. But I just want to come back to that advantage that you've now got, now that you're, the national sales and logistics manager, and going into production. So you've seen all aspects of the value chain. What have been the benefits from you as coming from sales in seeing that side of the business, and then vice versa? And how could that be used more effectively for other organisations to think about the way in which they operate more effectively by giving people those experiences across the business? What are some of those advantages?
Oh, look, it's a huge advantage. At the end of the day, I'm nodding because we too, in our business, say everybody has a client. Whether that be salespeople, our clients are our customers, production, our production staff, their clients are essentially sales.
Wow.
Dispatch, their clients are production and sales, and trying to find that balance. So that is something that we practice within our business, and something that we push at all levels. I think the biggest thing is having a clear company vision, and then ensuring that everybody in the business knows and is aware what that vision is. So, for example, our vision is to be the major supplier in our home market of South Australia. We're all working collectively towards the same end goal. Whether we're working in sales or whether working in dispatch or production, ultimately we're still working towards that same outcome. So, to answer your question on how the sales experience and knowledge helps in that area and vice versa, I was able to, I'll just go into the production and logistics role and how that helped me. So knowing the sales processes and systems, and also knowing how customers operate, when something goes astray or there's maybe not information included, it's about knowing where that information is essentially coming from in the first place. And if you want to change the outcome, I already had the knowledge and experience there to go, right, let's look at this process and where is it falling down ultimately? Yeah. What changes do we need to make to change the outcome that we're getting? Or where are your pain points? And I spent over a year in that role just implementing doing things differently. So coming out of that role and then stepping back into sales, the biggest strong point for me with that knowledge and experience behind me was then about the product. Now we're a manufacturer, so we're not relying on a bunch of suppliers to bring product in. We are manufacturing it. So knowing and understanding minimum production quantities, being able to offer alternatives to customers and knowing what our machine capabilities are. You're not just, coming up with scenarios or alternatives that may not even be viable. So I get a quote now come through even still to this day, and I'll look at it and say, okay, well, I know we can manufacture that in this tooling setup, so I'm going to go about it in a completely different way. Right. Whereas without that knowledge and experience, you're looking at things so much more isolated. Right. So that's one thing. The other aspect of it is particularly in our project space. Right. So we used to manage projects very differently, but we also, the projects have significantly grown in size and scale and volume. So to give you an idea, when I started at DM Plastics and Steel, the largest diameter we manufactured was 180 mil. Right. We now manufacture up to 630 mil in diameter and have 2 large bore pipe extruders. Wow. So the business dynamic has changed, but to be part of that and have 15 years of that knowledge and growth behind me, all these things have helped me really be successful in the role I'm at now, but also give the best possible outcome to our clients. Yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, I you know how you said when you went back out from production back out to selling that you had a completely different approach to the way that you'd engage with your clients. And I can also, what I heard in the way that you said what you said was a real certainty about the value that you were able to bring those clients. Do you think that level of certainty and that confidence that you had, because you had that holistic view of the business when you were going out to market, especially in the project space, that made a real difference to your success rate? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. It's being able to put delivery schedules and project planning and things in place. Yeah. Understanding the customer side of things, understanding the business's side, and basically just finding that happy medium, that balance in the middle. But the biggest thing for me is that I'm able to present a solution to a customer that adds value to their business. Yeah. That also adds value to ours. It's a win-win. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just sort of thinking about, from the customer's perspective too, listening to somebody who really has such a deep and thorough knowledge of the business across all aspects would, just lend so much credibility. So I have instant trust with you. I understand how you're thinking. So you're not just thinking from, getting a deal across the line. You're really thinking about my business and about aligning, the two businesses so that both of us have that mutual benefit. I want to ask you a question, because I have a feeling I might be speaking to the future CEO here, but let's just say that you one day do become the CEO.
Your trajectory, working across lots of different aspects of the business, internal sales, customer service, production, sales support, admin. I mean, all of those different aspects. How would you incorporate that if you were the CEO in helping somebody who joined the business to get the most benefit, not only for the business itself, but for their careers?
So I already do something similar at the moment. So any new employee that I bring on board within the sales team, they've got a full 2-week training program that details day by day, where I want their attention.
Oh.
So not that comes from a place of micromanagement by any means, but it's making sure that they're set up for success, and I will never set anybody up for failure.
Yes.
So they come into the business, I ensure that they spend a full day in production,
Yep.
understanding, the business's capabilities, the machinery, what's involved in manufacturing pipes.
Yes.
Because we are the only polypipe manufacturer in South Australia, it's rare for anybody to join the business and know the process. So for me, it's them understanding that process as well, because it helps when they're talking with customers who say, I want 5 lengths of pipe, and I think I'm just going to press a button, it comes flying out the other end of the machine. And I wish it was that simple, but it's not. So part of their training program that I put together is that they spend time in production, they spend time in dispatch, they go out in our local truck with our truck driver and do a delivery. Mm-hmm. They get exposure to all the different aspects of the business, and they can see their role that they play and how that, look, you bring a salesperson on, they know sales, they understand, they're usually hiring them because they've got a pretty good understanding of sales and what's involved in selling. But what they don't understand is, or sometimes not quite aware of, is how the decisions they make and what they do, what happens behind the scenes, and how what's happening behind that scenes, how that affects them or our customer. So it's about bringing it all together.
So what was happening before you put together that program?
People were just starting on board and speaking to a few customers and hitting the road.
Which is what
it wasn't quite like, yeah.
No. But Tamzin, what you're talking about there is absolutely something that is dear to my heart, because a long time ago, induction programs did take a couple of weeks to, and they were thorough, and they took everyone through the business. And so everyone in the business had a really good understanding of the company that they were working for. And it was more general before it got specific or role specific. And so I love the fact that you've introduced that now into your business, because the truth is, most salespeople are given a car, some brochures, a territory, a phone, and a target. Okay, good luck. We'll see you next Monday when we'll bang you over the head for not getting your target. But what you're describing here is about setting people up for success. So are you able to, as you sort of think back to, what it was like before and what it's like now, what are some of the differences that you're noticing, whether that be in salespeople's behaviour, in their results, in retention rates, either customer or salespeople, or, speed to productivity? What are some of the differences that you're noticing?
Well, particularly in salespeople, confidence. By the time they get out there, they're so much more confident in going and getting face-to-face with a customer and having a conversation with them. They're, any concerns they've got or any questions they've got, they also know that they have a whole team of support people here to lean back on. And it's okay to not have all the answers, but already their first initial call is, I'm here, I know what I'm selling, I've got the confidence to sell, and I know I have a whole network of people behind me. Yeah. So definitely with that aspect of the sales people side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I wonder if you actually did some stats on that. I have no doubt that it would be a lot of businesses say that it takes about 6 months for a new salesperson, to show any kind of return. I suspect that you're probably getting them productive, i.e. well and truly across, their customers much faster than that, and starting to produce results, in a much faster time frame, which means that those 2 weeks, and that's really all it is, but those 2 weeks that are really thorough is actually expediting your sales results.
Absolutely, yeah. And in the role of National Sales Manager, where I'm guiding the territory managers particularly, if a new territory manager starts on board, because I've been dealing with these customers, some of them for 15 years, I'm able to give them a full brief, so I'm not sending anybody out blind.
Yes.
They're not knocking on a door or walking into a store. They've, especially with our major clients, they've got a background story as well. So they're walking in, they know the product, they know a bit about their business, and it's just, you just hit the ground running so much faster, but you're also empowering your people with that knowledge that, I think knowledge is power. And if I can take what I know and pass that on to somebody else, then it just keeps driving things forward.
It certainly does. Tamzin, I have no doubt now that I'm looking at the future CEO there. That's if you want to, I'm sure. Now, if you were giving advice to a school leaver about a career in sales leadership, what would it be?
I know this may sound cheesy, but don't give up.
Yeah.
Sales can be tough. You're
Yes.
at the front of the line. You're copying it from a customer. Sometimes you could do a big project and lose it and feel deflated. Sales is tough for a number of reasons, and especially at a young age, it's when those things happen, it's hard to not take it personally.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing is, at the end of the day, it's business. It's not personal.
Right.
They didn't go and order it from your competitor because they didn't necessarily like you. It could come down to something that's totally out of your control. But the sales could be very demanding at times, but at the same time, it can also be extremely rewarding.
Yes.
So just don't give up. Embrace every opportunity.
Yeah.
And just, be organised. It's easier said than done sometimes. But, just keep finding ways to just move forward. Yeah.
Keep finding ways to move forward. I love that. So, I don't know whether I'd be giving much different advice to the way that you went about your career to start with, but if you were looking back at your younger self, Tamzin, what advice would you give to you back then as a 16-year-old with the knowledge that you now have?
There was something that someone who's been a very close mentor to me recently shared with me, and I really liked it. It's, I wrote it down.
Yes.
Just because I want to say it wrong. So if someone says you won't go far, go so far that you can't hear them anymore.
Oh, what great advice.
That was something that really resonated with me, especially starting in such a male-dominant industry. As a young female, I felt, and I always have felt like I've had a lot to prove.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
It basically don't listen to the doubt, have confidence in yourself, and people will see that.
Yes.
And whether you don't have to say, oh, I'm confident, it comes across in other ways, in the way you speak, your body language, the way you conduct yourself, is to just don't feel defeated,
Yes.
and if someone tells you can't do something, just prove them wrong.
I love it. I have no doubt that that anyone that knew you at 16 and now is looking at you as, such a senior leader in that business, who's incredibly experienced, who's training territory managers in a beautiful way, in a way that is completely your creation, that's creating such amazing business outcomes for that business. I just find what you're doing extraordinary. I think you are extraordinary, and I've been absolutely privileged to have you as my guest today on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to get on your podcast and share my story as well. So I appreciate the opportunity. And thank you very much for your kind words. That's lovely.
Absolute pleasure. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.